Hello, Tungsten Miner here, and today I'm going to talk about Gendustry. Last time I talked about forestry and its beekeeping stuff, and one of the things I mentioned is that it actually can get really, really tedious. If you think about what I was saying last time, if you want to breed two bees together and get that third species, so for example, if we were looking for our common bees again, and oops, want to get a common princess through bee breeding, you can start with any of your common bees that you'll find anywhere out in the world, and there's only a 15% chance that any two of them bred together will give you a common queen. And what that winds up meaning is you have to breed these guys over and over and over again in order to even get a common queen. And then, having a common queen, there's no guarantee that you'll have any common drones. And so you'll wind up breeding the common species out of that bee by virtue of breeding them with some other bee types again, and that species will disappear. So you spend a lot of time getting everything straightened out. And as you get into the more and more difficult species, that 15 goes down to 10, goes down to 5. It gets very, very difficult and tedious to try and get all of the levels of bees that you want. And that's where all of this stuff comes in. So when you're getting started with Gendustry, one of the things to know is this is intended to be kind of a higher end mod. It is very expensive, requires a lot of tools and inputs and things in order to make all the machines that you need. And it requires a terrific amount of power. And some of the stuff that you need to get started requires a lot of diamonds. So you'll have to have a lot of those as well. But let's get going with some of the most basic sort of machines that you'll want. The first thing is to start with this advanced Mutatron. Of course, you don't need the advanced model to start with. You can start off with just the regular Mutatron, which is made with this recipe, which is already kind of daunting. Here's that sturdy casing we talked about from Forestry, but to make a genetics processor, you need to use your BuildCraft assembly table with a pulsating chipset, which itself requires an ender pearl, some diamonds, some quartz. Making this bee receptacle requires some pieces. The power module requires some more pieces. These bronze gears are 4 pieces of bronze each. So that's 16 pieces of bronze, 2 pieces of gold, 2 pieces of iron, 3 pieces of redstone, plus 4 more pieces of iron just to make what we're looking at here. So yeah, even to get started, you need to have a fair amount of metals, and you need the BuildCraft laser stuff set up already. Once you've got the machine though, here we are, you've got this indicator showing you how much power there is. Now mind you, that's 1.5 million RF, and it will use a big chunk of that for doing each operation. Here's your mutagen tank. Now mutagen is kind of funny stuff. Basically, it's like any kind of radioactive substance that can be used to create a mutation between two species. And there's a lot of different materials that can produce mutagen in different amounts. So glowstone is simple, requires a little bit of power, and produces a tiny bit of mutagen. Yellorium, which comes from the Big Reactors mod, uses I think all of them use the same amount of power to create, but it produces quite a bit more mutagen. You can use glowstone blocks, you can use redstone blocks, you can use just regular redstone. All of these will produce mutagen. Yellorium produces the most mutagen, 1 bucket per item. So if you want to be power efficient about the whole thing, you can use Yellorium to make the most mutagen. And mutagen is made just by tossing whatever item into this slot of your mutagen producer, and it will use up a lot of power and put it off into this tank. Now I'm using thermodynamics servos and pipe system to drop it into this thermodynamics tank, which has a whole bunch of mutagen already produced in it. I've knocked this thing with a wrench to make it go orange, which means it's in output mode, and it outputs directly into this machine down below. Okay, so the next thing to know is when you want to crossbreed 2 bees, you need to start with 1 bee up here and 1 bee down here. So I'm going to go grab some example extra bees that I've got. Let's see here. I've got some ignoble bees that I don't mind using. So I'm going to grab my forest bee, and I'm going to grab, oh, let's see, a meadows drone. Drop them in there. And when I bring them back to the machine, I can put the princess in top, I can put the drone in the bottom. And now I've got some choices, actually, of different bees that I could develop. This leporine queen and this common queen are both possible outputs. And I can just click on one of these and it will start producing that bee if I have this slot full. And that's going to require, let's see if I remember where I put it, some lab gear. And I usually make a big stack of it, here it is, and leave it just in the last machine I used. Now the labware is produced by diamonds with a little bit of glass. That gets you 16. So 4 diamonds will make a whole stack of the stuff. And different machines use the labware differently. They all require it to be present in order for you to even start the operation of the machine, except the mutagen producer. And they will occasionally use up one of the labware items. Not every time. So you'll get more operations than labware produced, but you do wind up running out of it pretty quickly if you're doing a lot of stuff with any of these machines. And sometimes you do wind up doing quite a lot of stuff with these machines. So I'll talk about that when we get to the other machines. So here I am. I've got power, I've got mutagen, I've got my 2 different bee species, I've got my labware, so everything's all set up to produce whatever bee I want. Now I don't actually have a leporine queen right now. And so I could go ahead and produce one, but I'm noticing I chose a bee that has ignoble stock. And so it's going to produce a new queen that has ignoble stock. So I'm actually going to get rid of that. And since this will be a bee that I want to keep forever, I'm going to replace that forest princess with a different princess. So I've got pristine meadows princess, but I don't have a pristine forest princess. So I'm also going to change and use a different drone because it's the blending of the 2 species that matters. It's not actually which one is the princess and which one is the drone. So in this case, I can use a meadows princess and a forest drone instead of a forest princess and a meadows drone, and I get the same choices. Now I've already got a common queen, so I'm not worried about her. And now I'm going to grab this leporine queen. And I wait a bit, progress goes across, and now I've got a leporine queen. And I can find out what she does by using NEI. We'll jump over these. Oh, okay, interesting. She produces silky combs and every once in a while an egg. Okay, go figure. Fine, great. And I'm clicking through and I don't see an option for bee breeding coming up in my choices. So I think she's as far along the lines as you can get. There's no further mutations that come from this bee. So let's talk about the next things that we can do. And I'll get back to what we can do with our leporine queen. Actually, no. I'm going to set leporine queen out here. So over here, I've got an industrial apiary, which is another one of the blocks added by Gendustry. And, oh, it looks like I've been working on something over here. We'll set that aside for a moment. Okay, so here we are. This is a powered device. So if we poke around down here, we can see I've got power pipes coming out from the house, actually. So these pipes go through the ground. They connect up with the power pipes in that wall over there. And the interesting thing is that you don't need to, you can add these different extensions here in the center. So I've got this pollen scrubber update, which makes it so that flowers don't bloom like crazy all over the place. Because this is inside my, cultivated grounds, and I don't want a lot of flowers showing up everywhere. So I put that one in there to make sure I don't have that problem. Over here, I've got an automation upgrade. And I've got a lifespan upgrade. I'm going to grab both of those out of there for now. The automation upgrade makes it so that whenever a queen dies and produces a princess and some drones, it'll automatically feed them back in to these slots over here. So instead of all the pipework stuff that I showed last time with the beehive and the other alveoli apiary things, this time it just goes automatically. I don't need to do anything. So I'm going to put that one in there because I want her to breed. Actually, I don't want her to breed quite yet. And then I'm going to put in a lifespan upgrade, which actually is kind of a downgrade for the bee, but it makes the bee die off faster so that I can get the princess and work with the princess more quickly. You can see I've got a warning going over here flashing. It's not bright enough and it's not daytime. There are things you can do. There's an extension that you can add in to make that not a problem. But the easier thing to do is to just go to sleep for a bit. And that way we'll get back to the conditions where that bee is happy. But we could work around that if we needed to. Okay, off she goes. Go back inside while that's happening and look at some of these other machines. Here's some of the other extensions. So production upgrade, you can make the bees produce more of whatever it is they produce more quickly. Lifespan upgrade again. Dryer upgrade makes them work when it's when they prefer a drier climate than it currently is wherever you've got your apiary set up. A hell emulation upgrade. These are the more expensive upgrades where you basically wholesale replace what the apiary's climate seems to be to the bees. So if you've got some nether bees, you can have them work just fine in the overworld by adding one of these to your apiary. Talked about the automation upgrade, jungle emulation upgrade. Just like the hell biome upgrade, this is a biome emulation upgrade that makes the bees think they're in a jungle biome. Okay, so that's the industrial apiary. I'm going to leave that one working for a while, and eventually we'll come back out and see how that queen is getting along. The next thing to take a look at is once we've got our bees, we often want to identify various traits about those bees. And the way we can do that is by taking gene samples from the bees. So I'm going to grab my genetics labware, and I'm going to toss them in there, and I'm going to take this Meadows drone, which I don't have a particular need for, and put them in the machine. It's a powered machine, so it's going to use a bunch of power, and it's going to break down the bee and extract its kind of genetic components and manage to pull out one of its many traits. So in this case, it's pulled out the species trait, which for that bee was a Meadows species. And I'm going to come over here. This diamond compartment, honestly, I forget what mod these come from. The diamond compartment comes from, the Binny's mods. So Binny's mods add a lot of extensions to forestry. So there's extra bees is one of the mods. Extra trees is another one of the mods. So more bee species and more tree species. But there's also various gardening mods and botany to do interbreeding of flowers and to change the color of flowers from one to another and get different traits. All very interesting agricultural mods to explore. In this case, though, I'm interested in this diamond compartment because it's got basically a bunch of chests where you can put different tabs. And in the different tabs, you can name the tabs and give them an icon and choose a color. So you can customize the whole thing quite a bit. In this tab, I've got my species genes. So I've got gene samples that came from lots of the different bees that I've already bred. Austere, common, cultivated, ebony, excited, forest, industrious, modest. And I don't actually have meadows in here. Forest, industrious, modest. So I'm going to just toss that one in here and shuffle everything else down so that they stay in alphabetical order and I can find the ones that I'm looking for when I want them. So yeah, hooray, I've added another species to my gene bank. So what do you do with these genes once you've got them? Well, here is a genetic template. And so I'm going to run it through my furnace to clean out the genetic material that was already in there. And now I have an empty genetic template. So let's say I wanted to make more Meadows bees. I can come and grab my Meadows gene sample, and I can grab from here an empty vial. And I'm going to go to this machine, which is a genetic transposer. I didn't talk about the sampler. So its recipe uses a lot of the same parts. All the Gendustry stuff winds up using a lot of the same parts. So once you learn how to make these power modules and genetics processors and bee receptacles and things, you might look at the various machines you've decided to make and figure out how many of them you should make all at once. It'll save you a little bit of trouble. The genetic replicator we're going to use now is replicator, imprinter, replicator, yeah. Uses two of these genetics processors and two of the power modules, and yeah, it's all expensive. It's all kind of tedious to make, but once you've got it, it saves you a ton of time. So my transposer, yeah, same kind of story. Genetic transposer allows you to take one gene sample that you've already got, put it in the top, take an empty gene sample, put it off to the side here, grab yourself some labware, toss that in the top, and it will exactly duplicate whatever this genetic sample is. And the reason this is useful is because you sometimes want to keep around a genetic sample that you've already taken and have another one that you can use when you're making one of these templates. So the template allows you to then take any given combination of gene samples that you might like. So here I've taken an empty template. I'm just going to craft it together with this species, and I'm going to get myself a genetic template that I can use now to imprint on any bee I want. So let's say I wanted to make another Meadows princess. So I'll grab myself, I happen to have a bunch, but let's say I didn't and I wanted to make another one. And I want to turn this forest princess into a meadows princess. I can come over here to this genetic imprinter, put in my template on the top, put in my bee, grab yourself some labware, and toss that in the top. And it's going to take this bee and insert this entire genetic template into that bee. Now, of course, this has one of the 13 possible chromosomes that bees can have, so it's not going to make that significant a change. But what you can do is if you keep crafting these little genetic samples into your template, you can keep adding them one after another, after another, after another. So here I've got a genetic template where I've added many, many different traits. And in fact, I've kind of added all of the most desirable traits for the kind of bees that I like to have. So these ones will work whether it's day or night. They will work very quickly. They don't mind being in caves. They don't sting you or hurt you or cause you to have any ill effects. On and on, all the different traits that they could possibly have. And I can apply them to a given bee all at once with this one template, just the same way that I've made this from a forest princess to a meadows princess. Voila. By applying this template through this genetic imprinter. So let's see if this bee over here has stopped, and it has. So now I've got my leporine princess, I've got some drones, and I don't know what traits this bee has, so I can go and use the Forestry Beealyzer and take a peek here. So it's powered by honey, and you take your bee, drop them in the top here, and it will analyze the bee and tell you a whole bunch of stuff. So this one works slower, it pollinates slowest, it uses regular flowers, it makes two drone offspring, has an average territory, and has a festive effect. So that's kind of interesting. I was going to take this bee and just drop her in here and erase all of the kind of other traits and imprint these traits. But one of those traits is effect none, so I'd lose that festive effect, and I don't even know what that exactly is. And I'm curious enough where what I'm going to do instead is grab my automation upgrade. There it is. Drop you over here. Drop you in here. And I'm just going to let this bee keep producing more drones over and over again. And that way I'll get more and more offspring. And then eventually I'll be able to take them back inside and try and isolate some of those genes. But we're getting a little short on time, so I'm going to stop here and I'll pick up where I left off in my next video. As always, if there's something I didn't cover that you want me to talk about, go ahead and leave some comments. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel to see more like this one. Talk to you later.